You've probably already heard, but human civilization is going to collapse within the next 4 to 5 days. And we know this because every YouTuber on planet Earth is coming out and saying, oh, because of all the iPad kids and how Gen Alpha is spending way too much time on screens nowadays, is causing everyone to get addicted to their phones, and then that's going to result in
the beginning of the end of our species.
We all know that every generation deeply looks down upon the next one. Recommend these videos. However, the problem with that is, if every single generation hates the next one and it turns out to be fine, then we don't know when there's a genuine problem, because for all we know, that genuine problem could just be a repeat of the same cycle that's been going on for literally thousands of years. Ignoring the fact that the whole concept of generations is stupid in the first place, we have no idea, because this is something that's never happened before. We've never had screen times levels being this high at any point in human history. When an alien invasion, zombie apocalypse, or nuclear war happens, we really don't know what the consequences are, especially the first two, because they've never happened before, so we don't really know how to deal with it. It's the same thing with this. We've never had, children spend all their first few years with that much time on screens, therefore we don't know truly how bad the consequences are going to be. So in this video, I'm going to try guess how bad the consequences are going to be. Let's do some research, shall we? The National Assessment Education Progress report is a report that happens every 2 years, unless there's a global pandemic, in which case they skip a year. And it's basically how the US government knows how good all its kids are doing in school. Now, according to the NAEP, and their most recent report, which came in 2022, 32%, that's 1/3, of 4th graders, that's year 5 if you're British, are performing at or above proficiency level for 4th graders. And for 8th graders, or year 9s, that number is 29%. The NAEP website even has a tool that lets us select a grade, select a starting year, select a finishing year, and then it'll tell us just how many states/jurisdictions increased their reading proficiency level between those two dates. So I selected 4th grade, 2019 and 2022. Now, how many districts/jurisdictions had a net improvement in proficiency between those two dates for reading for 4th graders? 0, and 30 went down. And if you do the same thing but for 8th graders, then the answer's 1 and 33 went down. So we have to work out if previous generations were any better at learning to read than Gen Alpha. This is difficult because the first ever NAEP report was done in the 90s, so we're really just limited to comparing Gen Z and Gen Alpha. In the 11 years between 1998 and 2009, and we're just measuring grade 8 by the way, how many states/jurisdictions saw a net improvement of literacy and reading capabilities? 11 of them went up, and 6 of them went down. So now we're doing it grade 8 between 2009 and 2022. How many of them had a net improvement? Ready for this? Ready? 5 went up and 31 went down. Question 3, when was the iPad invented? 3, 2, 1, place your bets, 2010. Still on the grade 8 perspective, between 2005 and 2011, exactly 0 states/jurisdictions decreased. Between 2011 and 2022, 40 of them decreased. And if we're going to switch it to 4th graders, nothing has increased since 2017. While these statistics might seem shocking, we have to remember we're researching Gen Alpha, not Gen Z. And that's the thing, these statistics are for Gen Z and not Gen Alpha, okay? Assuming that Gen Alpha starts in 2010, if you do the math, the only Gen Alphas that have ever been measured by an NAEP report are the 4th graders in the 2022 due to the age things, because they only measure grade 4 and grade 8. Of course, I deeply apologise though, I've been presenting these statistics in a way that makes it look a lot worse than it actually is. Currently 4th graders are on level with 1992, and 8th graders are also on level with 1992. Although in 1992 they did not allow, quote, accommodations. And I'm not sure what accommodations mean, but I presume accommodations just mean extra help for the kids who have ADHD or something. Another coincidence, both sides are down 3 points from 2019. Therefore, I can only conclude, while this education crisis may seem bad at first glance, it's definitely nowhere near as bad as some YouTubers are making it out to be. However, that doesn't mean there isn't a problem. There is still obviously a problem here that we have to solve. However, the next NAEP report is scheduled for 2024, this year, meaning for the first time ever, we're going to see 8th graders measured by the NAEP report. Kids born the same year as the iPad are now in grade 8, or year 9. There are lots of reasons that this education crisis is going on, however the main one that everyone's discussing is that gosh darn phone. Now I'm never going to have kids, but if I did, then I would probably be okay with them not being able to read, so long as they were doing healthy and productive stuff in the time that they would have spent reading. However, almost 5 hours a day on screens is, not healthy and productive stuff. That's why I probably would make my kid read books if I had one. I would still give my kids a phone, however, I would also make sure they developed a daily habit of meditation and reading, as soon as they're old enough to sit still for long enough to meditate. I would also make sure they're not watching too much rubbish, you know? I would make sure there was at least something educational in his watch history. The one risk of making my kid read and meditate is it could make it feel like a punishment, and if I'm too authoritative, it might make him, like, I don't know, hate me. It might make him even hate reading and meditation even more. The reason most of us develop a hatred for reading in life, or at least in part of our childhood, is because we're being forced to do it, and something that used to be fun now feels like a punishment. I mean, that's one of the reasons so many people don't want kids anymore. There seems to be no way to do it correctly. You can be too authoritarian or not authoritarian enough, and there seems to be no good in between. They'll either end up hating you for being too authoritarian, or they'll get addicted to phones. What are you gonna do? Now lastly, I couldn't mention this video without mentioning Skibbity Toilet. I've had people tell me that watching Skibbity Toilet is rotting the brains of Gen Alpha, and I fully disagree with them. They also tell me that saying words like yat and skibbity are rotting their brains. That is just so not true. How can you say that? Why on earth does simply saying certain words make your brain rot? Anyone who thinks that Skibbity Toilet is rotting the brains of Gen Alpha should watch this short by Pocket Nord.
Skibbity Toilet is rotting Gen Alpha's brains. Is what I would say if I was a fucking boomer. When you were younger, you weren't watching the finest work that visual media had to offer. You were watching this shit. No, this is no better. Why is he singing about a Skibbity Toilet? Why were you singing about nuggets and biscuits? And sideburns, and badgers and mushrooms, and with the Spoderman? What the fuck was Spoderman? Young children have always been entertained by brain dead shit like this. Kids just find random shit to be funny. You're just getting old, man.
So, what are the consequences of kids spending too much time on screens? Well, I would argue that financially, the world is going to force them to do as well as they can do in this economy. However, mentally, well, their mental health is going to be absolutely ruined. However, I do think that saying that we're going to be living in like some kind of techno cyberpunk dystopia is a little too pessimistic. Most video essayists who say that are probably just trying to get views. The two solutions obviously are to stop everybody, including children, from wasting too much time on screens, and the other solution, of course, would be to reorganize the economy so that profit didn't exist anymore, therefore corporations didn't have any incentive to make their websites as addicting as possible. But the first solution is definitely going to be easier, so let's do that one. Of course, all of these predictions are just guesses. We don't know for sure. It's perfectly possible that we could turn out fine, and we're just worrying about nothing. I mean, every other generation was worried about the next one, but of course that thought alone can't make us dismiss all these worries. But, and this is the exciting part, we're going to find out within our lifetime what happens, so let's hope it ends well.
Will be happy to deliver, considering the fact that it's not real and costs nothing to produce. People will spend half their day working just to make enough money to sustain their physical bodies and virtual life. And as time goes on, the corporations behind this continue to gain more leverage over the people as they become more dependent on their product. The only thing that will remain unchanged is Western corporations' exploitation of third world labor to produce everything. And it's around this point that a hyper-reality will officially come into existence, alongside the beginning of the end of our species.
If you believe literally everything these doomsday YouTubers say, then you're going to become the most pessimistic person ever, who believes that humanity is doomed and completely doomed from the start. And as we've seen in this video, the data indicates that yes, there is a problem, no, it's not as bad as it looks. And most of these doomsday YouTubers can cite literally no source except for a bunch of TikToks they found, which says a lot about them.